CBS Sports Ryan Wilson with his biggest needs for the Browns in the offseason.
Offensive line, they have a ton of guys who are injured and a ton of guys whose contracts are going to be up after the end of the year. You got to fix the offensive line. Wide receiver is perhaps the biggest need of this team, maybe none bigger on any other team than wide receiver. Jerry Jeudy scored a touchdown on some route he made up. It looked like a dig, it looked like a post. Either way, he took it to the house 2 weeks ago in that Titans game, and that was great, but he can't be your wide receiver one. Harold Fannin Jr., the rookie tight end, has been fantastic. David Njoku's in the last year of his deal as well. And Rand, we did this in our mock draft last week. You can never have enough defensive players either. If you have Peter Woods staring you in the face, you take him there as defensive line and line him up next to Mason Graham and Myles Garrett and worry about your next pick, because that defense is going to be even better than it currently is.
I get the idea behind needing a quarterback, but I think if you put a quarterback, a young quarterback, behind a line and what you have at receiver right now, you need substantial upgrades, significant upgrades at wide receiver and offensive line.
I don't disagree with you. And, if you told me, do I think that both of these selections, or even the two firsts and the early second, are all going to be on the offensive side of the ball? I probably wouldn't argue with you. Of course, we have, free agency to go through, possible trade scenarios to go through. The wide receiver room needs help. There's no question about it. The offensive line room desperately needs help. And you're probably looking, from what was the starting line for week one of this year, you're most likely probably saying there is going to be a complete overhaul from left tackle to right tackle, all five of them, for week one of the 2026 season. There's no question about it. But, and I think a lot of people just think, if you get the quarterback, you can't do anything else. Well, that's why you have 2 first-round picks. That's why you have free agency. Earlier in the show, it was mentioned the Chicago Bears brought in 3 offensive linemen this past offseason. New England changed 4 out of 5 on their offensive line coming into this season. So there's, definitely more than one way to, skin a cat here. And we're not, I don't think anyone's kind of, putting a blind eye, to how bad the offensive needs are. There are some needs on defense. I think some of those are probably easier to address and maybe handle in free agency than what you're going to need to do on the offensive side of the ball. But yeah, you figure, offensive line, there could be a good chance, in my opinion, that David Njoku doesn't come back, because I think the money that David Njoku is going to feel he's going to be worth is not something the Browns are going to willing to commit, because Harold Fannin is already the more, reliable receiver. It's a lot easier to go out and pay for a blocking tight end than it is to extend David Njoku. So, there's going to be a lot of hoops to jump through, and everybody gets nervous about money. But you got to keep in mind of a lot of these offensive linemen are leaving this team. There goes that money, and then that can get, allocated other places. There's always contracts to renegotiate. We know how much Andrew Berry loves to do that. So, yeah, it's a pretty big overhaul on the offensive side of the ball. But luckily for them, there are some pretty nice building blocks, I think, in some young players that, rookies, obviously, that really kind of stepped up here and showed their wear. But now you just need to put together another great draft class and hopefully hit on a couple of free agent hits.